Hey everybody, it's Romania Black. I can't believe we're on the final 4 episodes of Bungo Stray Dogs season 3. It's kind of crazy. I'm not sad. It's not hitting me yet because I'm going to be watching Bungo Stray Dogs 1 after this. So it's not the end of the Bungo Stray Dogs world yet. But it's just weird that we're in the final arc. This season's gone by really quickly, and I feel like we had episodes 1 through 3, which were their own thing based on the light novel. We had episode 4 that introduced Fyodor. Episodes 5, 6, and 7 were all just kind of there in their own separate worlds, and they were great. But then this last episode, episode 8, was kind of like, okay, yeah, we're back to the plot of season 3. And it's like, what? So I'm curious if in my head, I'm thinking that if we're following the manga, the events of episodes 4 and 5 are going to tie back into the main plot character-wise. And we saw a little bit of that last episode when Octagawa was talking to Nathaniel, and he's like, oh, well, you care for a beloved. That's beautiful. And I was like, when did Octagawa get so poetic? But in the prior episodes, episode 5, we saw him care about his sister, Gin. So maybe that was setting up the fact that Octagawa does care about people. He just hates at sushi, you know? And so there's that. And then with Fitzgerald Rising, I'm like, okay, we've established that Fitzgerald's made camp in the middle of Yokohama, right next door to Mori's base. So maybe that's going to tie into the plot as well. I don't know. It seems like the season had those standalone stories to either set up character motivations or to set up possible things that will come back up into the plot later on. We haven't seen Katai yet in a while, so Katai from episode 5, he could pop back up and help out Kunikita and them. That could be a thing too. But Fyodor, he's put his plan into motion, and it's pretty grim, connecting old President Fukuzawa together with Mori, and one of them's gotta die. I'm like, there has to be a workaround. Even if it involves them doing surgery to get the virus out of one of them, there has to be a workaround, because I refuse to believe that Mori or the president are gonna die in this series. I refuse to believe it. I'll believe it when I see it. But speaking of Mori, since we got his power in action last episode, I realized I've never researched him. He's one of the authors that I've been waiting on to see the power, and we saw Elise Chan do her special power, whatever that is, in the last episode. So I thought, you know what? We're in the last arc. We've done the president. I might as well research Mori Ougai, and he is surprisingly interesting. Surprisingly interesting. So before we start episode 9 here, I do want to talk about Mori Ougai, or Mori Rintaro, as his actual birth name is. I love it because Elise Chan has been calling him Rintaro this entire time. So, my research about him, Mori Ougai, or Lieutenant General Mori Rintaro. So he was in the military, and we're going to talk about that. Lived to be 60, so was born in February 17th of 1862, died July 8th, 1922. So lived to be 60 years old. Known by his pen name of Mori Ougai, was a Japanese army surgeon, general officer, translator, novelist, poet, and father of the famed author Mari Mori, which we'll talk about her. Oh my gosh, it's great. I really loved researching him. He was a lot of fun. So Mori Ougai is considered the first to successfully express the art of Western poetry in Japan. So he's actually I've noticed a lot of these authors in this series had obsession with Western literature and kind of brought that into Japan. So bringing something outside of the culture into the culture, and Ougai is no exception. But after his death, he was considered one of the leading writers who modernized Japanese literature. And so basically, Mori was the eldest of several siblings. One of his siblings, Kimiko, actually had a son and then a grandson who were also writers. So this whole family is full of writers. Ougai's family is just chock full of Japanese authors, which is really cool. So it said that he actually went and studied classes and studied Dutch of all languages. I guess, French or German wasn't good enough. We're going to study Dutch. But he actually graduated from the Tokyo Imperial University Medical School in 1881 at the age of 19. So he graduated from medical school at the age of 19, the youngest person ever to be awarded a medical license in Japan. That's pretty crazy. I can't imagine being a doctor at age 19. That's absolutely insane. And during this time, he developed an interest in literature, reading extensively in the late Edo period, popular novels, and taking lessons in Chinese poetry and literature, which is really, really cool. So he enlisted in the Imperial Japanese Army as a medical officer, hoping to specialize in military medicine and hygiene. So tying back to his character, I like that we tied to his character as a doctor. He went over and studied in Germany, and he became obsessed with European literature. And he's the first Japanese individual known to have ridden the Orient Express, which is interesting. And one of his major accomplishments was the ability to create works using a style of translation that he obtained from his experience in European culture. So he was promoted to surgeon first class in May of 1885, graduated from the Army War College in 1888, and was promoted to senior surgeon second class lieutenant colonel. So it kind of ties into Mori's whole thing about strategy and military strategy. That the tie into his character is that in real life, Ougai was actually in the military, even though he was a surgeon. So he has a big, extensive military history behind him. And so he attempted to revitalize modern Japanese literature and publish his own literary journal and his own book of poetry. And in his writings, he was an anti-realist, asserting that literature should reflect the emotional and spiritual domain. Which is funny because in the show, Mori he takes out emotions from the equation, right? And he's all about strategy. But in real life, it was kind of the opposite. He was all about spirituality and emotionality, which is pretty cool. But his short story, The Dancing Girl, which I wonder if it relates to Elise Chan, described an affair between a Japanese man and a German woman. And Elise has blonde hair and blue eyes, which is the stereotypical German description or the Aryan description. So that's interesting. But he was married twice. The first wife that he had was Toshiko Akamatsu, who was the daughter of an admiral and a close friend, Nishi Amane. And the couple married in 1889. They had a son born in 1890, Otto, and then he divorced her the same year. And so it apparently wasn't a good divorce because it said afterwards he was no longer friends with the admiral. It completely ruined their friendship, the divorce. And then 10 years later, in 1902, he married Shigeko Arakawa, and they had 4 children: Mari, Furitsu, who died in childhood, Anu, and Rui. And both daughters, Mari and Anu, as well as Rui, all became writers. So that's pretty cool. So Furitsu died as a child, but the other 3 became writers. And then Mori was promoted to senior surgeon first class. So it goes into a lot of detail about this, but in terms of Vita Sexualis, I thought this was hilarious. It wasn't the first work that he had, but it was his most controversial. So in 1909, he released his novel Vita Sexualis, which was abruptly banned a month later. So it was on the shelves for 30 days, and then the Japanese government was like, nope. So basically, authorities deemed his work too sexual and dangerous to public morals, which I find hilarious. Ougai, during the period he was writing Vita Sexualis, focused on making a statement regarding the current literary trends of modern Japanese literature, and he approached the trend on sexuality and individualism by describing them as the link between body and soul. Quite the modern man, this Ougai. He pointed out problems concerning the art and literature world in the 19th century in his works, basically criticizing how probably modest everything was. And his writing style depicted the Meiji government's perspective derived from naturalism and was implemented with his thoughts that were brought up from writers who focused on the truth with a lowercase t. But it didn't stop him from writing. He kept on writing even afterwards, but that was his most controversial work. So of course that's going to be it's funny, that's going to be his power in the show, being his most controversial work. And then it's controversial in the show because the power is a little girl, and he seems to have an obsession with little girls in there. I didn't find much on him having an obsession with little girls in his biography, but I don't know, there could be something else out there. What I do find really interesting, though, is that his daughter, Mari, she actually, when she was 19 years old at the time of his death, she was only 19 when he died, she wrote extensively about her relationship with her father, starting with her 1961 novella, A Lover's Forest. She wrote tragic stories about love affairs between older men and boys in their late teens, which influenced the creation of yaoi, the genre about male and male relationships. So it's funny, Mori Ougai wrote about sexuality and individualism and kind of was banned for these revolutionary ideas, and then his daughter years later basically wrote stories that were the impetus for the yaoi genre. I'm like, that's a legacy. I'm all about it. So that's really, really cool. And then Mori's sister, Kugane Yoshikiyo, is the man that she married. Kimiko married him, and then Hoshi Shinichi was one of their grandsons, and he's also a famous author as well. So yeah, pretty crazy. I was really, really thrown by how influential Mori Ougai had been, which makes sense. He's one of the main characters and one of the biggest influencers in the show. So very interesting. And in fitting with the yaoi genre, he's a shipper of Shinsokoku, of Sokoku. So, Fun times. But I thought that was really interesting. I thought researching Mori was fun. I hope he lives. I don't know how they're getting out of this, honestly, but I really don't want Mori to die. I don't want the president to die either. So I'm hoping Fyodor's made the comment that you could do surgery. It would just be suicidal. But we know this crew. They're pretty much maniacs. And you were telling that to a pseudo-suicidal maniac himself. So I don't know. But in any case, I've talked enough. I've talked for 10 minutes. Let's start this episode, shall we? We're going to start Bungo Stray Dogs episode 9, Cannibalism, part 1. So I'm guessing this is going to be the big thread to lead us to the climax, right? I'm assuming so. So let's start this, shall we? We are going to start episode 9 of Bungo Stray Dogs here in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Oh, so I did not get good vibes from this. Man, this is the first time I think watching Bungo Stray Dogs I have felt in dire straits. Because here's the thing about Bungo Stray Dogs. It's like it has its moments where you are concerned for the characters. Absolutely. And it's had its moments where you're like, how are they going to get out of this? But in the back of your mind, you think, well, they're going to figure something out. Because usually you have Rampo to depend upon. You have Dazai there. In season 2, the Port Mafia and the ADA were working together. So, and you had the special ops. So you really didn't have this sense of, it was more like, how are they going to defeat the guild? Rather than if they're going to defeat the guild. That's how I viewed season 2. I was like, how are they going to do it? I never felt like there was a chance that the guild was going to win. It was just like, okay, what are they going to do? And is there going to be any casualties from this? But to be honest, there have already been casualties in this. And Fyodor is not messing around. I am kind of amazed at just how grim this got real quick. Like, real quick. And we're only in part 1. I was thinking, part 1, we would just be setting stuff up. But there's already been, like child death. And, we're going to talk about this. We need to talk about this. So, we have, I didn't even think about the setup of Tanizaki using his power right off the bat. I didn't even think about that. I was like, okay. And plus, we still haven't gotten Katai. Katai is still not present, so there's a chance he can come into all this, which is intriguing. I like the idea. And we haven't got that damn calico cat. Where has he been? Where's that calico cat been? Well, technically calico cats are always female. So, or technically calico cats are supposed to be female. If there's a male calico cat, it's like extremely rare. Calico cats are usually female genetically. So, interesting. We don't know where the cat is. The cat is probably off with Katai somewhere. But, man, Fyodor is proving to be quite an interesting antagonist, working behind the scenes to orchestrate all of this and dealing in it's like 4D chess dealing here with this, to the point where he was even throwing Rampo off. And that's terrifying because Rampo has been our end all be all. I said this back in season 1. I was like, Rampo's kind of OP because he instantly deduces what's going on. And it's funny because the show has found ways to get Rampo out of the plot when he's not, when they want it to be more of a challenge. They found ways to get Rampo out of the plot. Either in Dead Apple, he doesn't have an ability, so he was kind of cut out from that movie. In season 1, he was off doing his own investigation, so he wasn't around to help out. And in season 2, he was helping out, and that's how they solved the mystery. It was just he had to work. So it's interesting that in this, Fyodor's even pulling one over Rampo, and that's a bit crazy, right? Oh my gosh. So we need to talk about this. So Tanizaki playing hostage while they're going to try to find the ability user, capture the gifted user who made the virus. That makes perfect sense. Rampo's strategy makes sense. We need to find the gifted user who created the virus, has that ability, kill him, and then we'll save the president and Mori, and we'll stop the conflict. And that would make sense. They can't use Dazai right now to completely cancel out his ability because Dazai is having surgery because he's been shot. Fyodor really thought the head on that. He was like, no, we're going to take Dazai out because our gang has always depended on Dazai working behind the scenes to make sure that he could figure out what was going on. And that's what Dazai was doing, but he got cocky. My only thing is, I'm like, Dazai, if you've been playing... Dazai's playing 4D chess just like Fyodor, so if Dazai planned on getting shot to have this come back at the end, I'm going to be like, really? I also don't like seeing the president and Mori with, like, sweat down their face looking ragged. I don't like it. Not at all this episode. And Fukuzawa, he actually snapped out of it for just a second to say, don't fight the Port Mafia. We need to maintain the stability and peace in the city. Fyodor just wants to create chaos. He's an agent of chaos. You know, he's very Joker-like. He just wants to mess stuff up. And what the line from Batman that old Michael Caine says as Alfred is, some people just want to watch the world burn. And that's Fyodor. He's hiding it under the guise of making this perfect sin-free world. But he just wants to watch it all burn. It's like, it's crazy. I'm really excited to get to him in the manga, to see what all goes on, because I've heard he's the long-running antagonist of this series, and so that's going to be interesting. But yeah, this creepy girl, when Kunikita, we talk about him, oh my god, Kunikita and Atsushi, when they're out in the slums of this little, it all goes back to the city in the slums and the crater. It all goes back to Chuya making this crater and making this city. Arahabaki. But yeah, this little girl in the background, creepy as hell, by the way. Super creepy. And she was trying to lure them to over there to where the brother was. That was the whole goal. Her with the flowers and everything, just looking dead. And Atsushi making the comment, the atmosphere here reminds me of the orphanage. There's just this air of despair. And that's it's really despicable, because Fyodor is using and taking advantage of people who are disadvantaged anyway, all for this self-righteous namesake of stopping sin or whatever. But it's like, you're just being awful too, you know? Because he knows what he's doing. And he's hiding it under the guise of, oh, it's the sacrifice for the greater good. It's like, is it? Is it really? And so Kunikita, right off the bat, Kunikita being the president's replacement, Kunikita being like, we can't afford to take chances anymore, and just whipping out a gun being like, if I gotta shoot somebody, I've got to. But you know that's gonna be Kunikita's last resort. Like, he doesn't want to kill anybody, but he knows that we're in dire straits, that now's not the time to be hesitant. And man, Fyodor thinking ahead of all this is kind of crazy. But them going in, and so man, what a double blind here. The guy that we think is the ability user, he's not. He's just the sibling, or the foster sibling to all these kids, just like Oda was to those kids back in season 2. That's the disgusting part of it, is that this guy's just doing what he can to protect those kids, and they end up getting hurt anyway. And then, yeah, he was making... When we saw this guy making food, I was like, it's weird that this criminal is just underground making food for kids. But then you find out he wasn't the criminal to begin with. He was just another pawn Fyodor was using. And saying, brothers, we've been tracked down. And one of them looked like a girl. Or a couple of them looked like a girl. So maybe... I don't know. But yeah. Maybe it was just a boy with his hair pulled up. But the idea of all these kids trying to protect him, and then the girl saying that the brother would be hurt if they didn't go along with it. That's but it also said save brother, so I don't know if the brother if their other brother is the one that Fyodor had imprisoned with him while he was playing the damn cello. Let's talk about that. But yeah, luring them down in there to the trap Kunikita and Atsushi down deep within the city into the sewers. It's a good thing these kids with these submachine guns can't aim very well. Everybody when they need to has the aim of a stormtrooper in this show. It's kind of hilarious, to be honest. But, I mean, oh God, we need to talk about this. So, my one wish is that I wish Atsushi could just become a giant tiger, but then, and him catching the bullet with his teeth was pretty great. That was great. I love that he caught the bullet in his mouth. You gotta love those tiger powers. But here's the thing. The kids. The idea that these kids have been weaponized and that Fyodor basically had the brother, kind of used the brother and the kids to attack them. And Kunikita, this goes back to the OVA. I didn't think we'd call back to Kunikita's OVA, which it makes sense. This show, it's like you gotta watch the OVA because it's gonna make sense in season 3. And that whole thing with the book, and that being the sign that the little girl was supposed to watch out for. And even then, Kunikita, he could have done a grenade. He could have done a grenade to actually kill the kids. But he didn't. Instead, he did the tear gas bomb because it's Kunikita. And then we have Atsushi and them running past, and Kunikita having to shoot the kid in the arm. Like, that was actually pretty brutal. seeing this kid, you know, basically screaming and bleeding, and them having to run past because they're on a mission and they can't stop now. It was hard to watch, and especially Kunikita being upset about it. And then there's the girl with the grenade strapped to her. And Kunikita, going right back to that OVA, how nice he was, like leaning down to get on her level, like him being so kind and trying to like tell her that it was going to be okay and try to calmly. And then we cut to Fyodor playing the damn cello, and it's like, what? Yeah, and then this guy is like, you abducted me just to have me play this. So is that guy's ability the one with the virus? Because he didn't use that. I thought his was like something different. Really, I'm a little confused about that, because I'm like, was his power the one to make the virus or not? Why does Fyodor have him? That's crazy, unless he was trying to get information about Kunikita, so he just kidnapped him to get more information, and then he decided to perform a concert for him. I'm gonna make you have a personal concert. Also, the room that they're in, again, tying back to Dead Apple, that mosaic on the floor, it's crazy. And then yeah, Fyodor basically killing this girl just to prove a point. That's, oh my gosh, just the self-sacrifice and everything. And Kunikita, he looks so soft, him trying to like reach out to her and being like, it's okay, it's gonna be all right, you'll see, we'll save your brother. He's like, I'll do a magic trick. And it's like, he's trying to be so kind, but then that's what Fyodor told her to watch for, because he knew he was going to use the notebook. And then, oh my god. And then somehow, I'm assuming Fyodor used the book to keep himself safe, to make a shield or something to ricochet the blast. And then we cut right back as the bomb explodes to Fyodor saying that happiness in this world. And I love that shot of him with the cello, like looking up. He's like, happiness in the world, happiness to the world, blessings for the children. It's like, you freaking hypocrite, you killed like potentially 3 kids here. Like, what do you, no. And then yeah, Kunikita, like, just, we don't get to see him yet. We just know that Atsushi's going after the guy, the brother that got away. And then that was the moment where he's like, give up our ability. And he's like, what ability? It's like, at that point, you're like, the kind Russian. There's a group trying to cover up a hit and run. The hit and run from 6 months ago. And Atsushi's like, what the heck are you talking about? So is the hit and run covering up the headmaster's death? Is that the hit and run they're talking about? I think that's what they're talking about, was that hit and run. So meaning that 6 months would have passed since episode 6. And then yeah, Kunikita, his glasses being gone, and he died. That little girl died. Nope. And then yeah, just him losing it. It's hard to watch. I don't like seeing Kunikita cry. I don't like it at all. No. And then they go, a lanky Russian. And then yeah, Rampo and the others show up. The kind Russian man told me my life will be spared if I show this to my pursuers. I like that even though Fyodor was threatening his life and threatening to kill him, and he was like, the kindly Russian. I'm like, dude, a guy threatening your life is not kind. I'm sorry. He's not. And the fact that Rampo's like, nah, this is probably a fake too. It's so crazy. The fact that Fyodor's gotten the slip on Rampo. And Rampo, I don't like him. Yeah, no. It's like going up against Dazai. Exactly. It's the same 4D chess that Dazai was doing. Damn. I have a message from the kind Russian. He told me to tell you all just this. Rules can't be changed. So, yeah, so basically the idea is that the rules can't be changed. Somebody's going to have to die. You're going to have to get the virus out. You can't just kill the guy that had the ability. Can't change the rules. Damn it! I don't like that at all. No. So we go back, and Hirotsu and Koyo have their right idea. They're like, we can't have Mori die. We can't have a power vacuum in the Port Mafia now. Things will just go back to the old boss. We can't do that. It's been years since the Port Mafia has been this vicious, as Hirotsu notes. He's like, we can't risk it. So yeah, we have to kill your president. Otherwise, what about us? You know, everybody's looking out for their own side. And then Tanizaki pulling that light ability to the very end, like making good use of it. And y'all, you shouldn't have pressed the Naomi button. You just don't do that with Tanizaki. We've seen that every season. You just don't threaten his sister. He doesn't like it. But yeah, it's crazy, right? It's crazy. To protect the boss, we have the purpose. To have the purpose for existing as who we are. We have to sacrifice. People will sacrifice their lives to do that. He's like, we're not going to give up who we are for you all. That's just not how we roll. It's like, and the ADA is like, well, we're the same way. So here we are, except we're not going to try to kill people unless we have to. But y'all seem pretty eager to kill people. So, and Hirotsu's like that. Hirotsu can be intimidating when he wants to be. And in this episode, he's pretty intimidating. I like the Hirotsu is he comes across. It's crazy because in episode 3 and 4 of season 1, I was like, man, Black Lizard's like Team Rocket. And now we look 2 seasons later and it's like, no, Hirotsu's actually pretty intimidating, which is kind of cool. And then, of course, Gin. I'm glad Akutagawa wasn't there because if he saw Tanizaki threatening him, that's why when he goes to kill Mori, Tanizaki, I thought it was Akutagawa that attacked him at first because I was like, oh, well, you attacked Gin, so her brother is going to attack you now. That wasn't the case. It was Koyo, which makes sense. We didn't see Koyo this whole time. Of course, she'd be protecting Mori, of course. And then so they put the president in Lucy's space, which makes sense, right? But I loved that whole idea that he had the Dapo poet thing behind his back and he was waiting till he revealed it, and that was the signal to get Kunikita to be like, oh yeah, to say Dapo poet, even from miles away. That was really cool. I like it. I like it a lot. But yeah, the idea that the president wakes up. I'm amazed the president could wake up in that moment. Here's the thing. I thought whenever it goes to kill him for a second, I thought that Mori actually died, that Tanizaki did it, and that's what woke the president up. And I was going to be really mad. I was going to be like, no! But that's not what happened. The president woke up just for a split second. And of course, Anne's room, so he's like, I'm in this strange room. And then Lucy, of course, says, well, because Atsushi asked me so nicely, I put you here. And she's like, don't move. And then he's basically saying, he's like, don't fight the Port Mafia. He's like, I'm not that important. He's like, my life isn't important, which that's how the president's always been. The president has been like, my life's not important. Don't worry about me. Just protect the city, stability, and peace. And fighting the Port Mafia is going to do the opposite of protecting its stability and peace. So kudos to the president for trying to stick up and be a good person. But it's like, dude, I hate it. And then, yeah, Koyo coming in and being like, if that man were to die, the Port Mafia would regress to the one I so despise. Here's the thing. It's so funny because at the beginning of season 3, Mori was worried about all of the people not liking him being in power and was worried about betrayal and worried about all the loose ends and people trying to like get him out of the way and have a power vacuum. And by the end of this season, everyone in the Port Mafia is fighting to save his life. So it's kind of like, It's a Wonderful Life. It's like the movie It's a Wonderful Life, except Mori's realizing just how many people he affects and how far they'll go to protect him. It's like, it's kind of funny when you compare the beginning of the season to now to see just how different it is. But yeah, Koyo's like, I didn't like the Port Mafia then. It's a lot better with Mori in charge. As weird as he is, we don't need him to die. So there has to be a middle ground, right? There has to be a way. There has to be some way to stop it. We just don't know how yet. And even Rampo's stumped. And we don't have Dazai. So I just want Dazai's surgery to go well and for them to like call him and be like, help us. And he'd be like, you can't do anything without me. But yeah. And then I was really worried for Tanizaki because he got hit by Golden Snow. And I was worried that he was going to die. And then sure enough, Kyoka comes in. And that is Koyo's only weakness is Kyoka. And she manages to bust out. And of course, Koyo won't let them shoot Kyoka because she's basically like a daughter to her. So it's like, that was well planned. Well planned indeed. And I love that you can just see how sincere Koyo is with Kyoka and how she doesn't want her to get hurt. I love it. I love it. I love it. So then, yeah. They got out. And Yosano is healing him. And then Tanizaki said that he messed up. And so then Atsushi's like, isn't there some way we don't have to fight them? That we can do what the president said? Isn't there some way? Because, yeah, at this point, they're going to have to fight him head on. And Atsushi's like, let's not do that. The president said we shouldn't do that. Isn't there some other way? And everybody just kind of looks at him like, that's what he said, but he'll die if we don't. So it's like, they're both going to die if nothing happens. And then we cut back to Fyodor, who has broken the violin, or broken the cello. He's broken the cello and, like, smashed it. Like, just right through the middle. And then, yeah, the guy being held hostage is like, what the hell is your goal? And then he just smiles. It's like, we don't know. It's just to destroy things. Just to destroy things so you can get that damn book. So I'm trying to think what they could do. What could they do to stop this from happening? I mean, other than the surgery, other than doing the suicidal surgery to try to remove the virus directly, which seems like the worst case scenario. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how they're getting out of this. I really don't. I mean, there's still Katai. Katai has the power to control technology. So if they were trying to sneak into the base, they said it'd be hard to sneak in. But if Katai could like dismantle the security system, then that might be easier if they did it that way. If you're going about that business. But I'm like, Natsumi, dude, where you be at? Where's this calico cat and where's Natsumi? You've been showing up this whole time and now you disappear? Suspicious. Suspicious indeed. I'm wondering if there's anything that Ango can do. Where is Fyodor hiding out at? Why does he have this guy held hostage? If he's the ability user, why didn't he use his cannibalizing ability earlier with Kunakita in the OVA? I thought that he had a different ability though. I'm going to have to go back after this and rewatch the OVA and see what his ability was. Because I'm like, why would Fyodor have you? That doesn't make sense. But you don't realize how important Dazai is to the story until you don't have him. And then it's like, crap, what do we do now? So I don't know, y'all. I really don't. I'm stumped. This was a really good episode, and I was like on the edge of my seat the whole time, which I love Bungo Stray Dogs because it's like, I know it's a seinen, but it's just like, it's fun and it has action and really good characters and it's funny, but it never felt like, I didn't ever feel like, oh, this villain is a real big threat. And now it is a real big threat. And I'm like, and of course it's the two characters I don't want to die because they're two of my favorites. So I'm like, how are we getting out of this? And usually you can kind of piece it together and I'm like, okay, well, I can see how we can get out of this. But this episode, it's like everything I thought, like going on the same logical line as Rampo, everything I thought was going to get solved is like, I don't know anymore. But here's the thing. Poe's not around. Lucy's with them, but we don't have Poe. And then Louis and Fitzgerald, I'm like, are they going to fit into this somehow? Louis and Fitzgerald being like the rogue agents that Fyodor doesn't expect. Because I don't think Fyodor realizes that the guild is still around. I don't think he's factoring in that at all. So that's the only thing I can think of is either Natsumi and Katai are going to show up and play a part in this. And we haven't seen Natsumi this entire series except for the OP. So you know he's going to show up because he's in the OP. It's like when and how. So there's that. is Ango going to get involved anymore? Is Fitzgerald and Luisa going to get involved? There's all these players that aren't on the board yet that I don't know if Fyodor is privy to that could show up and help or have some kind of capacity in all of this. But I don't know. I don't know. I want to discuss more, but I'm not sure what to discuss because I'm like at a loss. I really love that Atsushi, even after everything that's happened, is still this like ray of optimism. And it's like, no, we need to do what the president said. He advised us to do this. We need to follow his orders. And everybody else is like, even Kunikita, which I felt so bad for Kunikita in this episode because I was like, dude, having that girl die, and it's like Kunikita couldn't save her. And then Tanizaki, he couldn't get the job done with Mori. It's just, it's really dire straits going into this climax, which, you know, episode 8 kind of set it up. But yeah, we're really at our lowest point here, it seems. Y'all are probably like, oh no, it gets worse. I'm like, damn it. But yeah, the stakes are actually real. And I don't like them being real. So, I'm curious to know what y'all thought down below with this episode. I'm curious to know your thoughts about it, and what you all think going into episode 10. I don't know what to expect at this point. It's like a giant question mark. In all the other cliffhangers we've had, you've at least had an idea. Like when Dazai and Atsushi were in the subway, and Atsushi's like, oh, we may have to form an alliance. It's like, okay, them and the Port Mafia are going to work together. Or when Dazai and Kunikita were working together during the Azure Messenger arc, that was a two-parter. Like even in those scenarios, you kind of have an idea going into the next episode what's going to happen. I don't right now. I have no clue, which is great, but terrifying. So I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. Please don't spoil me. I'm really excited to find out what happens next, but y'all, I wasn't ready for this episode for sure. So in the meantime, I'm going to try to wrap my brain around it a little bit more. But in the meantime, and I'm going to hold off on Crime and Punishment with Fyodor. I am going to research Fyodor before the end of the season, but I'm going to wait for now. So, with that being said, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back next week with episode 10 of Bungo Stray Dogs. Bye.